Two big stories in the tennis world today. Of course, number one, Novak Djokovic reveals that he is against taking a coronavirus vaccine and may not play tennis if that becomes a requirement on the tour. And number two, Rafa Nadal is not very good with technology.
Okay, we are waiting. Finally!
Are we in? Did we make it?
Finally!
My God! Oh, I don't know if it was you or me. How are you doing?
It's sure myself.
Me too. I went in and out and in and out. I don't know how many times, but at the end,
but you know,
made it. My God!
I wish we could just play that on a loop endlessly. Rafa Nadal staring down at the computer, looking like he's about to have to save a couple of break points.
Rafa,
how are you doing, Candy?
I can only see. Oh, there we go. You're back.
Okay. This Instagram life is. I am going crazy with this.
Today on the show, we'll talk about Novak Djokovic and his keeping an open mind on the COVID-19 vaccination comments that have a lot of people pretty fired up, as you can imagine. Rafa Nadal says we won't be playing tennis without a cure, which that kind of couples up with what Novak Djokovic is saying. We'll talk a little bit about the plan for tennis to help out some of the lower-ranked players, guys going as low as 700 in the world, and what they're going to do for them financially. We've also got some good news here that there could be, even if they canceled the U.S. Open, if everything gets canceled, we still might get to see some high-level tennis competition and perhaps televised or at least put online in some capacity. We'll talk about that. And we got one little thing at the end of the show. I just wanted to talk about some comments from Juan Carlos Ferrero talking about why Alexander Sasha Zverev is not quite yet ready to win a Grand Slam. Of course, in today's Corona tennis world, no one wins Grand Slams because there is no tennis. Welcome to Coffee Break Tennis, the only place where there is tennis. And of course, on YouTube, you can watch all of the old tennis from the past, which we have been doing. Quick comment, I was going to do a top 5 all-time Miami Open matches video, and then I saw this. I've decided to do top 10 now, which has taken a lot more work and research, and there's some lesser-known matches, I would say. You know, we all know Kyrgios Federer is probably the at least top 2, right, on that list. I think ATP's top 5, they made that the #1 match, the 2017 3 tiebreaks. But then there's a lot of other matches that, you know, there's matches that end in a tiebreak in the 3rd set. Of course, like 2011, Djokovic, Nadal, that definitely goes high up on the list. Comment below if you've seen some of the lesser ones, though, like a 3-set match, no tiebreaks. But I believe Roddick beat Nadal 4-6, 6-3, 6-3, maybe 2009, 2010. I think that's a pretty good match. And if you watch that match, maybe you could argue that it's more competitive than some other matches that have tiebreaks. There's a great match where Federer loses to Tomas Berdych in a 3rd set tiebreak. Of course, the match where Federer loses to Guillermo Cañas. So much shock value in the upset there. So if you've been to any of these maybe lesser-known, older, forgotten matches, if you've been there or at least you watched it on TV, comment below your thoughts on some older matches that maybe people are missing out on, or they don't have Federer or Nadal in them, or you know, you don't always have a big 3 matchup in some great matches. So comment below if you got anything to add. That will be up this weekend for the Patron Saints, and everyone else, I'll probably put it up Monday or Tuesday, make it open to everyone in the tennis world. So let's go right into this ESPN.com article I have here. Novak Djokovic says that he's keeping an open mind on COVID-19 vaccination. So many people very angry. And very recently, Novak Djokovic's wife posted an Instagram video that is somehow linking. I didn't see this video. I read about it. It's linking 5G conspiracies and the cause of the coronavirus, COVID-19. So a lot of people very mad at Novak Djokovic, calling him an anti-vaxxer and all that stuff. But let's take a look at what was actually said. Novak Djokovic faces a dilemma if it becomes compulsory for players to get vaccinated before they can return to competing. Personally, I'm opposed to vaccination, says Novak Djokovic, and I wouldn't want to be forced by someone to take a vaccine in order to be able to travel. Which, you know, on its face, that sentence right there doesn't sound too terrible to me. It is a scary idea to feel like the government is going to make everyone take the needle and get some kind of vaccination. But of course, if that means saving thousands and thousands of lives, then we probably should all consider taking the vaccine. But I understand when Djokovic doesn't like the idea of being forced to put something in your body. And we all know Novak Djokovic is a guy who is very into what he puts in his body, his diet, being gluten-free. When he first announced that was such a big deal. And of course, he does a lot of things with his diet besides not eating gluten, a lot of restricted things in his diet. So no surprise to me there. Let's continue reading what he said. If it becomes compulsory, what will happen? I will have to make a decision. I have my own thoughts about the matter, and whether those thoughts will change at some point, I don't know. Hypothetically, if the season was to resume in July, August, or September, though unlikely, I understand a vaccine will become a requirement straight after we are out of strict quarantine, and there is no vaccine yet. Yeah, there ain't going to be a vaccine this year, and some experts out there, some epidemiologists will tell you that there may never be a successful vaccine against COVID-19. They may never even be able to come up with it. So to me, no reason to freak out yet because there might not even be a vaccine. There is no law or order from tennis tournaments that you must take it yet, at least not that I'm aware of. It sounds like Djokovic thinks here in this sentence that it's coming. And I don't know if I'm opposed to that. It's not a bad thing. If there is a vaccine and we know for sure it's going to work, then why not take it? But I'm thinking Djokovic and a lot of other people are worried that this vaccine will be rushed and maybe it won't even work. Maybe it'll cause some kind of harm. So I don't think we should all totally trash Novak Djokovic, but it is interesting to see people react to. I just posted this quote from Djokovic the other day on Instagram. I didn't say anything about it. And instantly, there was many heated comments, debates, and yeah, that's always interesting to see. I am no expert, says Djokovic, but I do want to have an option to choose what's best for my body. That sentence alone sounds fairly reasonable to me. I am keeping an open mind. I'll continue to research this topic because it is important and it'll affect all of us. The prominent Serbian epidemiologist Predrag Khan, definitely saying that name wrong. He said that Djokovic should not have made anti-vaccination statements because of his huge public influence in the native Balkan country. Of course, he's talking about Serbia. They tack on to this article that last month, Amelie Mauresmo said that the season is wiped out because there won't be a vaccination this year in 2020. And when they do come back, you must have a vaccine. I mean, there's a lot of people traveling to make a tennis tournament. People are flying in from all over the place. So it is hard to see how there will be any tennis. I know there's been a lot of talk about the U.S. Open might have no fans, which at this point, hey, I'd rather see that than no tennis at all. But we're not going to get any kind of answer on that until sometime in June, I believe, is when the U.S. Open will start making some announcements about what they actually are going to do. And again, with the coronavirus, COVID-19, we don't really know enough to know what's going to happen in August and September. So it makes no sense to make a decision now, except for in the case of Wimbledon, where they had a very small window to do the tournament. Anyways, that made sense. Right now, we just kind of have to wait and see. Meanwhile, Rafa Nadal said something pretty similar. The quote from Nadal is, in my opinion, I don't think we will play in short or medium term without some kind of a cure for the coronavirus, from Rafa Nadal, which, again, we're not going to see a vaccine anytime soon. What we are seeing is that the flattened curve, we have flattened the curve, as they say, if you're not sick of hearing that a million times. And I think a lot of people didn't quite understand what that meant. Flattening the curve doesn't mean like we've defeated the virus and now it's going to go away. Things are opening up right here where I live in Georgia slowly. We're going to see that around the world. And everywhere is going to open up slowly. There are going to be people getting sick. But the main thing about flattening the curve was to make sure we didn't overwhelm every single hospital in the world, because then you have tons of other people who are sick who can't even get into the hospital if the things are overflowing. So all of that is coming down. That is a good sign. Not a good sign, though, for sports, because we're going to see things opening up all around the world slowly, but they're going to be on a small scale. You're not going to see a stadium with several thousand people. Probably not this year. So fingers crossed that we get some kind of tennis with no fans, even though, God, could you imagine seeing a match at the U.S. Open, the biggest tennis stadium in the world, with 0 fans there? It would be very odd. Meanwhile, over at the BBC.com, this is an article by Russell Fuller. Tennis world planning multi-million-dollar aid for lower-ranked players. 4 Grand Slams and tennis's 3 governing bodies are finalizing a multi-million-dollar package of financial assistance for lower-ranked players. So some good publicity for Djokovic a couple days ago before the... this is a great comment Will brought this tweet to my attention. Take a look at this. If Novak Djokovic was a stock in the stock market, he's had some pretty wild ups and downs recently. But Novak Djokovic put this thing out there from the ATP Player Council, and basically there's a sliding scale for top 100 players to contribute. Now, one thing this article brings up by Russell Fuller and the BBC is, some players who are like ranked 100 or 99 in the world, it might be hard to convince them to part with $5,000. Sure, how long have you been in the top 100, right? If you just recently got into the top 100, maybe you need that $5,000 because, yeah, you're making more money as a top 100 player, but you're not doing it right now. Right now, you're making $0 as a tennis player and as a tennis coach, I might add. The calculations would allow singles players to ranked between 250 and 700 in the world to receive a grant of $10,000 each, which is tricky because, what if you're a lower-ranked player, say you're 100-something in the world now, but you used to be a top 30 player not that long ago, and you have some money saved up. Like, what about someone like Jack Sock? Jack Sock has made a lot more money than other guys with his ranking right now. So the way sliding scale works is, big three, top 5 players are going to give $30,000 each. Guys ranked between 100 and then it goes down, but eventually you get to 100 to 51 in the world. They're going to donate $5,000 each. Again, I don't know if you can get $5,000 from all those guys. All right, a couple more things, and we'll get out of here. I want to keep today's video short and sweet. Not really a whole lot going on in the tennis world other than the anti-vax dilemma. Comment below if you do have a comment on the anti-vax thing with Djokovic. I do respect Djokovic's position of being very careful with what he does with his body. It's a big part of his success on the tour. But at the same time, if it's a no-brainer and everyone can get this vaccine and we can just stop the coronavirus pandemic, how can you argue with that? And then, of course, you do put other people at risk when you don't get vaccinated and you go out into the world. It kind of nullifies the point of a vaccination if we got a bunch of anti-vaxxers out there spreading the disease. So comment below what you think about that. That's a tough one. And unfortunately, it's about the biggest news we have in the tennis world right now, except for a little bit of good news. Last things here. Rafa Nadal is going to open his academy for professional players to train and compete. And Nadal even says he would like it if we could somehow televise this or put it on YouTube or something like that, so we could actually see very high-level players competing at Mallorca. Nadal has offered his academy as a gathering point for many players, calling numerous ATP and WTA stars to come to Manacor once the situation gets a little better. This is off into the future, but if you can't have a big tennis tournament with a bunch of fans, it's going to be cool to watch these guys compete and practice matches. I think this would be awesome, especially when there's no tennis at all. According to this tennisworldusa.org article by Jovica Ilic, Rafa would love to see televised matches between top-ranked players. That's the part I'm excited about, providing the opportunity for many tennis fans around the world to watch their favorite competitors in action again. The Rafa Nadal Academy has already hosted numerous tennis events, blah, 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 ATP Challengers. One more similar article, Andy Murray set to take part in a behind-closed-doors tennis tournament this summer. So over in the UK, this is from the Daily Mail in the UK, Andy Murray could be in action this summer. Plans are in place to replicate the ATP Finals. Top 8 British players competing in a round-robin format of 2 groups. Andy Murray could be in action this summer as part of that tournament. To maintain social distancing, players would take the role of the umpires and call their own shots in or out. This would be awesome. Would love to watch that. Even if the best players in the world, the top 8 UK players, might not be the very best players in the world. But hey, seeing Andy Murray there, seeing how he's doing after all the stuff that he's been through physically, I think that'd be pretty interesting. If there was a way to televise some of this, yeah, would love to see that. And also there's words that Patrick Mouratoglou and his tennis academy, that they're possibly working on some of the same things. Hopefully we could at very least get some YouTube videos of some matches and maybe even get some big time players out there. Although I don't know if they'll want Novak Djokovic to be there without his vaccination. Just kidding. Juan Carlos Ferrero, finally, and we'll get out of here, explains why Alexander Zverev couldn't win a Grand Slam yet. This is very interesting to me because Zverev is a mystery to us. He's so talented. Everyone thought he was going to start winning earlier than he has, obviously. And let's take a listen to a former world #1 and Grand Slam champion who worked with Zverev for about 8 months. I trained Zverev for 8 months, and I noticed that he used to go back and forth a lot in the same match. That's why I think he can't win a Grand Slam. The irregularity leads him to play the 5th set heads or tails. It's a coin toss, how he's going to play, good or bad. It's basically what he's saying there. This is the money line here from the coach on Sasha Zverev. Zverev was, for example, 3 hours on the court practicing, but he could not perform quality training for an hour and a half. There were protests, stops, anger, distractions. Hit the music because we're getting out of here. So there you go. From Juan Carlos Ferrero, some thoughts on Sasha Zverev's maturity problems. But of course, he acknowledges that he thinks Zverev will get there, as we all do think Zverev will be winning some big tournaments at some point in the future. Assuming that there is tennis, make sure you check in Patron Saints this weekend. As we get closer, I'll post on our website, patreon.com/coffeebreaktennis, exactly when I will have the top 10 Miami Open matches of all time video. A lot of work is going into this, so I hope you enjoy it very much. I've had some trouble ranking some of the lesser known matches, so do comment below if you have insider information on some of those matches. We will definitely be back next week to talk about the latest tennis news Tuesday next week at night, just like today. So expect to see us back next week, and hopefully there'll be some kind of real tennis news out there. See ya!